Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular board meeting of the Amery Board of Education. We will now reconvene in open session. We were in closed session earlier. The first item on the agenda are the consent agenda items, which I believe Keith had this month.
Yep,
Okay.
and I'll make a motion to accept those.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the consent agenda items are approved. The next matter on the agenda is community comments. Are there any community comments tonight?
We have 3 people signed up.
Okay.
Yep.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Relo, and I teach English here at the high school. First of all, I'd like to thank you for taking our comments, and I don't envy your tasks. You've got some very difficult decisions to make. I'm here to speak in support of a safe return to school. A safe return, we know that students learn better in person in the classroom, and I have missed being with my students in person tremendously. We've done our best with online learning in the very short amount of time that we had in order to prepare. And if it is such a thing that we need to immediately go to online learning again, I know that we will be better the next time because all of us have learned quite a bit. But the reality is that I'll speak for myself because I don't want to pretend I know everyone's situation, but in my own situation, I went into teaching because I thoroughly enjoy the interaction with my students. And it's difficult to sit in front of a computer, even with Zoom and various ways of seeing each other through a screen and teach. So we know that students learn better in person. I can teach better in person. It's much more effective for me to have 3 classes or 4 classes at a time rather than 90 individual lesson plans that I'm working with. And we know that mental health is much better when we can be together in person and not feel isolated. So there's just a couple of things that I wanted to say in association with coming back to school safely. Tonight on the NBC Nightly News, one of the statistics that they talked about is that in May, 34 states had mandated the wearing of masks. In June, all 34 states recorded a decrease in their number of COVID cases. Other states that did not mandate masks reported an increase. Masks, not for everyone, but for most people, it's such a simple thing to do. For some people, it is not, and I appreciated your honesty at the last board meeting. I know that for some people, wearing masks is a trigger for trauma, or there is a medical reason that they cannot wear a mask. But for most of us, it feels like an inconvenience, but it's a health issue. I will be wearing a mask, and I want to keep my students safe. I want to keep my students' families safe. And I will have a variety of masks. I will figure it out. I've been experimenting with them all summer. Some fog up my glasses more than others. Well, then I won't be wearing those all day. But I will figure it out because I want us to be able to be together here safely in person, but in the high school, there is just no way that we can safely social distance. In my classroom, there is no way that I can have 25 to 30 students in that space and keep them safely socially distant. For me, this is about health. This is about wanting us to be able to be together, to learn together. And I'm completely in support of us coming back to school, but I really want us to be able to do that safely. So, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Soon Gunther. I really appreciate the opportunity to share tonight. My respect and admiration for the Amery School District is high and continues to grow. This is an especially challenging time as you prepare to return for class with COVID. So thank you for your dedication to this essential work. As an alumna of Amery and now as a parent to a student here, Amery Public Schools is a large part of my life, and I'm personally invested in its continued success. You are in my thoughts and heart daily. Thank you. I'm here today representing the group Amery United. We've been organizing locally around issues of racial equity and reconciliation. As you all must know, racism affects even the youngest children in the classroom. In my daughter's 4K classroom last year, in her words, the black kid was also the bad kid, suggesting implicit bias is present. My niece in middle school regularly hears the N-word used by her peers. This line of thinking negatively impacts black and white futures alike. How can we interrupt that? Our mission in Amery United is to build an embodied anti-racist white culture focused on abolishing white supremacy. As defined by the Ontario Anti-Racism Secretariat, anti-racism is the practice of identifying, challenging, and changing the values, structures, and behaviors that perpetuate systemic racism. We believe the school plays a critical role in supporting a culture of anti-racism that reduces harm to students of color. It is the duty of educators and administrators to be aware of the effects of systemic racism in education and to provide a curriculum that is honest and inclusive. For instance, because we live side by side with Indigenous peoples on Ojibwe land, we believe it's important to center the impact of colonization on Indigenous populations in our study of Thanksgiving. Honoring the truth of our shared history deepens the meaning of the celebration and moves us toward a culture of peace. If we want to raise warriors for liberty and justice, it's critical that our students are immersed in a curriculum that is rich in diversity and that they are supported by teachers who are educated and invested in dismantling racism in all its forms. We would like to offer our energy and resources to Amery Public Schools in a few ways. We can help you raise funds to support school libraries and classrooms with anti-racist literature and books centering diversity and racial equity. Organize and raise funds to bring guest speakers to school and help plan those events. Identify lessons, programs, and resources already in Amery School's curricula that incorporate anti-racist principles and also provide additional suggestions there. Can we leverage the momentum of the national movement together? Can we partner with the board, with teachers and staff, students and parents, to end color blindness in our classrooms and become a beacon for the culturally sensitive practices of anti-racism? We believe that if we take these steps and do this generational work together, our children's lights will shine brighter and positive change will be affected long into the future. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Sam Bosley. I'm a science and math teacher here at the high school. I'm here primarily to correct some information that was offered last week during the public comments and support some of the other comments that were made in favor of required mask wearing for those that are able. So the virus is spread mostly by inhaling respiratory droplets that are emitted when someone sneezes, coughs, or even talks. Almost all of these particles emitted from an infected person are easily blocked by the masks we're wearing right now. Not all of them, but most of them. Some smaller particles that manage to get through can be slowed down, just a physics thing, and they'll drop a few feet in front of you rather than 10 feet in front of you. People that wear them that aren't infected get some additional protection because larger particles coming at you are also blocked by the mask. Again, not all of them, but some of them. So it's effective both ways, mostly on the way out. It blocks almost everything on the way out. The comment was made last week that masks don't work because virus particles are very small. But those virus particles don't exist mostly as individual particles. They're part of larger saliva and mucus particles. I'm sorry for those of you that are germaphobes. It's a little squirmy, and they're floating all around us if we're not wearing masks. Based on research done at MIT, a sneeze, mucus and saliva from a sneeze can be emitted from a nostril at 100 miles per hour and travel more than 20 feet. So social distancing and hand washing is effective, but it doesn't help you if you're sitting in a classroom and even one or two people are sneezing and coughing. The particles are going to be everywhere. They're going to be floating all around you. If the classroom is poorly ventilated, if somebody's infected, pretty much everybody in there is going to get infected as well. And research has shown that. That's why there's very little infection outside. It's still not, don't go to a pool party and stand shoulder to shoulder, but there's been a lot of outbreaks in bars and offices. Poorly ventilated inside spaces with people uncovered, you will have respiratory droplets floating in the air, sometimes for hours. People are going to get infected and get sick. The masks aren't 100%, but they work very well to contain that. So we have to make sure we have correct information. Again, nothing is 100%, but every legitimate medical and government source now agrees it's true. Back in January, February, March, there was disagreement. People weren't sure. Scientists weren't sure exactly how the virus spread. We weren't sure we had enough masks. But since then, it's 100%. I challenge you to find, again, a legitimate source. Start with the Mayo Clinic. I think most of us in here probably trust them, right? We all know people or have been there ourselves. But anywhere you look, masks absolutely work to help contain the spread, echoing what's already been said over the last couple board meetings. And then I also ask you to consider the liability issues. If other schools are requiring them of all who are able, and I understand age, medical conditions, other factors, but all who are able, if they're doing that, we're not, and we possess the information that it can prevent serious illness, I think that leaves us on the hook for some pretty serious liability as well. So it won't be easy. I don't like doing it. But we have to do the online options for kids and parents who aren't willing to do this or for whatever reason, have health conditions that keep them from coming back. But I would again support people who have come up before and said every staff member and every student who is able at Amery schools should have to wear a mask when we come back in the fall. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's no more community comments, so the next item on the agenda are the administrative department reports.
You guys will be getting all the reports from me today, so it's a hazing ritual, I was told. I'm just kidding.
You're not the new guy. I told you.
Okay, so the little sports update. We do have the strength and conditioning program is continuing to go on. We've had some very good success with that. The organizational structure of that with the smaller groups has been so successful that they're even thinking about doing that long-term into next year as well because the kids are having so much success with that. We do have a couple of summer camps that are going on, various ages throughout the district, so that's a great thing. Past events, last week was graduation week with graduation practice last Wednesday night, went great. And then July 16th, last Thursday night, we had our graduation ceremony, which also went great. Tons of people we want to thank for that, and it was a great thing. Other events or things going on, we have floor tiling and carpeting going on both at the middle school and the high school. The auditorium sound upgrades and improvements continue on, and in all of our buildings and all of our departments and all of the schools, we are working very hard to plan for the start of the next school year.
Okay, those are all the administrative reports?
He got nominated
All right.
for all of them.
Okay.
The hazing
All right, the
that
next,
is the administrative team.
the next item is the annual community education update by Ms. Hendrickson.
I don't know why you didn't do my report for me, Mr. Gould.
You got to ask before.
I guess. Well, good evening. Tonight Tonight I'm going to talk about just a year in community education and kind of try to put in a nutshell how the last year has looked and talk a little bit about where we're going from here. As you know, community education is just a part of my job. I also handle a lot of school district communications, which includes everything from district newsletters to calendars and social media, but we will talk about that at another time. Tonight we'll just focus on the community education piece. In your board packet, there's a 2-page piece, and the first page is called the 2019-20 Summary Review, so I kind of want to go through that, and I have a couple things to add to that. So as you may know, I normally put out 2 community education catalogs per school year. One will go out late August, and the other one goes out in mid-January. So what I'm talking about today is a combination of both of those semesters or catalogs, if you will. So over the course of the last school year, between those 2 catalogs and some other things that were added throughout, we had 127 total offerings. Of those offerings, 112 of those fell under the category of education and/or enrichment classes, workshops, and the youth recreation and camps that we host. There were 5 that fall under the category of just our recreation opportunities. Those are our open gyms, our weekend rec basketball, our Rumble Jumble open gym, which is for little ones during the week, our adult basketball league, which is on Wednesday evenings in the winter, our open gym for pickleball, which is also Wednesdays in the winter, and then Power Up Open Gym, which we host in partnership with Power Up as part of the Amery Hospital and Clinic. There were 6 trips planned. I took 2 bus loads to Mamma Mia at the Chanhassen Dinner Theater last fall. We took a bus to Mean Girls, which was a Broadway musical at the Orpheum Theater, a bus to the Minneapolis Home and Garden Show. We were going to go to the Music Man at Chanhassen, that was canceled. And then we also have tickets to 2 Broadway productions, Frozen and Come From Away, also at the Orpheum. Both of those have been postponed and pushed back to 2021. And then 4 events for the event category, and that includes 2 of our youth rec fairs, which we have held here at the high school. We do 2 per year, and we welcome every organization from Girl Scouts to Booster Sports to private organizations like the dance company or martial arts to come and share their information with students. We hosted a Christmas Carol live radio play with St. Croix Festival Theater, and our annual Prairie Fire Theater, which was Sleeping Beauty last January. It's the goal of every catalog to at least offer, of the offerings, at least 10% of them are new. Obviously, there are a lot of things that we've been doing forever because they always fill up and they're important. But we always try to add some new things, some new fun things we did this year. We added candle making, we added decorating, furniture painting, ghost hunting. We found ghosts downtown. Depends on who you ask. We actually talked to them. I can explain that later. We had a succulent class. We offered, in partnership with Farm Table, youth yoga classes. And then I haven't had dance for a long time, but this year I found an adult a man who came in to do adult dance classes. And those were really starting to get going before things were canceled. So things were going great up until mid-March, like everything else. So of those 127 offerings, due to school cancellation, I had to cancel 41 of them. 292 refunds totaling over $12,000 in refunds. 2 trips were postponed to 2021, like I said. Registration estimated participants through March, 2,377, and that number comes from actual registrations. Most of it's pretty black and white, but there's definitely a gray area there with open gyms, though we track our open gym numbers. It's never exact. We never know exactly how many people are in the audience for an event or who might attend the youth rec fair, but it's pretty close. And then this year, for the first time, I looked back and thought, okay, what would that number have been had we been able to keep going with what was already planned? And easily there would have been, through my estimates, our could have been numbers would have been another 450 or more easily, but we canceled some pretty big stuff this summer and spring. Pretty significant numbers. Participants by age group, and this does not include recreation or event participation. About 10% of our registered participants are under the age of 5. 29% elementary and intermediate school age. About 13% middle school. only 5% high school, which is to be expected, over 30% 19 through 54-year-old adults, and then over 13% are over the age of 55. And I work with 48 instructors, leaders, different supervisors throughout the course of the year, the school year. So challenges, 2 significant challenges this year, obviously, that are ongoing. Excuse me. Obviously, that loss of opportunity, and not just recreational opportunity, but like DNR. We have kids who, probably at least 50, 60, 70 students, I'm not even sure, I guess they didn't count up, who are not getting their hunter education certification, their boat safety certification, their ATV safety certification. So all the community ed stuff isn't always just the fun stuff. There's some other things that we do as well that are unfortunately are off the table now for a while. And the other challenge obviously is the financial piece. The goal of community education is that the programming breaks even. What we spend on catalogs, instructors, postage, what else? Transaction fees and software, we make up in registration fees. And, excuse me, obviously that's not going to happen this year. But on the bright side, gives us an opportunity to step back, reevaluate, regroup, and we'll see where we go from here. How will things look this fall? I really have no idea. Not really sure where we're going. Based on the decisions that you make tonight and as school starts, then I'll kind of step back and look at community ed, and we'll see what makes the most sense. I have instructors who want to teach. We've kind of penciled some things in for late fall. I haven't made any promises. We'll have probably some more online opportunities. There probably will not be a fall catalog, or there will be a very small version of one. And we'll promote in different ways. We utilize online promotions, different things, once we know if and when we can make some things happen. As you know, community education is valuable in our school and in our community, has been for a very long time. So we'll be back. Like everything, it will look different. That's not always a bad thing, and it's okay, but it will, lots of decisions yet to be made, and hopefully we're able to. I want to stay on everybody's radar, and we want it to come back when the time is right. The second page of your document is just partners. Community ed can kind of be broken down into 3 pieces, I guess. I have the piece where I do classes, and then the piece where I am hosting and advertising for things that are already happening in our community, and then there's the piece where I get to be a sort of a community liaison between things that are happening in our community and the school and bringing those things together. So I just made a list of partners, people that I've worked with for lots of different reasons, including things like Design Amery, and that's kind of one of the parts of community ed I like the most. Design Amery was a large community project that we've been working on for over a year. That's now postponed indefinitely. It's really not about the school, it's about making the community better, and I'm thrilled when I ever get to play a role in kind of helping to make those things happen. So hopefully Design Amery will be back at some point as well. So do you have any questions?
I don't have a question, but a comment. Thank you very much for how flexible you've been, and thank you to all the instructors for how flexible they were as we hit March, because I know it wasn't easy for you or for them with how unpredictable the whole thing got. It was a lot of, we'll let you know, and I know you're still probably saying that, but thank you for your efforts on that, because that had to be pretty impossible to get done.
Thank you, Sean.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the action items. The first action item is the resolution and addendum to add HRA funding.
Twyla Sickink is here. She is our personnel person, and she is going to speak to, first of all, the rationale for why we're here, and second, what you're looking at in regards to a resolution. And I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's going to dazzle you with her knowledge.
Dazzle. Okay. So what you're looking at is an amendment or an addendum to our HRA post-retirement language. And periodically we'll come up with this because when this was first devised, we weren't aware of all the situations that would happen. And one came up that we realized our language didn't work with the situation that we had. Our current language kind of puts an age stop at 65. Nothing is lost at age 65, but our language actually prevented the district from contributing to a retiree's HRA after age 65. And as you know, in our personnel action item, Stacia Kerper is retiring, and she told me it was okay to say she is over 65. I got permission. So our language didn't fit that situation. So I worked with EBC, who's our third-party administrator, to make a simple change into allowing us to make the contribution for somebody who retires after the age of 65. Really, again, these addendums are periodic and usually result from a situation that our language wasn't prepared for. And so that's what's in front of you tonight, is to ask for kind of a revision to the language, allowing us to make those contributions. Do you have any questions?
Can't catch everything when you draft the language the first time around.
Really, and
Makes sense.
this was
Is there a motion
quite
to
a few
approve?
years ago.
Move to
Any questions?
approve the adoption agreement resolution and addendum to the HRA reimbursement.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll sign the resolution. All right, the next action item is the 2021 Student Academic Standards.
So it is the time of year to make sure that we have the school board pass the resolution to have standards. So I'm very happy to say that the standards have not been canceled and we are moving forward. I would recommend that the Amery School Board approves the adoption of curriculum standards, of course, on an annual basis. The School District of Amery has K-12 English Language Arts and Mathematics standards that are based on Common Core state standards. All other programs are based on the most current Wisconsin state model, the Wisconsin Model Academic Standards, as well as national standards. So we'll kind of go through one by one. Common Core state standards are programs that are aligned are English language arts and math. Wisconsin State Model Academic Standards, and the C3, which is College, Career, and Civic Life Framework for Social Studies. Wisconsin State Model Academic Standards and Next Generation Science Standards for our programs in science. And then Wisconsin Model Academic and National Standards in the following programs: art, music, Phy-Ed, health, and CTE vocational. I would also like to update you, as of June 30th of 2020, we have 3 sets of standards that have been adopted, revised, and then adopted. English language arts, which helps the state's youngest students help build reading foundational skills with an emphasis being placed on understanding phonics through explicit, systematic instruction. Secondly, financial literacy, which focuses on helping students understand and learn how to make wise financial decisions. And finally, in physical education, which will further support Wisconsin students through whole child development and focus on their overall well-being. So our 3 departments of English language arts, financial literacy, and Phy-Ed will all be working on integrating those new standards or revised standards into our current curriculum this year. So at this time, I would like you to approve our use of the Wisconsin state standards, national standards, and Common Core state standards.
I'll make that motion. I second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, thank you, they're
I'm
approved.
sorry, I should have asked for questions. There was one final document that I gave you, and that was newly released by DPI, and it is their phase-by-phase rollout that they plan to do with the revision of all of their standards. And it's just phase one, understanding what the new revisions are. Secondly is curriculum, is matching our curriculum to the revised standards. And then thirdly, making sure that our assessment and instruction are reflected on the revised standards. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Okay, the next item, action item is the Warrior Bounce Back Plan.
Okay, you see two documents in board book. The first of which is a resolution, and that resolution reopens the Amery schools September 1, 2020, the scheduled first day of the school year 2021. And second, you'll see the most recent version of the Bounce Back Plan. The only difference between the version of this plan that you saw last Monday evening at our working session and this meeting at the session where you will be asked to take action is the mask policy. And I will summarize that version for you at this time, the most recent version, that is. There will be a requirement for all staff and all employee groups to wear masks while at work. All students while on bus transportation will be required to wear masks. And students K-12 will also be required to wear masks. Now I'm going to split students into two groups. The K-5 group, which is the elementary and intermediate group. When students are in their cohort, and for those who don't know what a cohort is, say for instance, second grade, a classroom in second grade, name your teacher. When they're in that cohort, they are not wearing a mask. When they leave that cohort and go to another place, they mask up en route to getting there. And then once they're there as a cohort, they would no longer need to be masked because they're still with the same kids once again. 6-12. Students would be required to wear a mask. That's the only change between what you saw last time and what you're seeing here this evening. I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. So, if there's any conversation, now would be the time.
It was brought up in community comments, Sean, that if we don't have masks and we're not taking that action, that opens us up to some liability. Can you speak to that at all and what that's looked like? And we did talk about that in reopening campus and what that liability looked like. And does that still apply here?
I would be happy to speak to that. I've been on 2 Zoom phone calls and a third tomorrow, actually, and all 3 of them were with legal counsel. In one case, our specific legal counsel, which would be Tricor and Lead Home. The other was with Mike Julka, who is the lead attorney for the Department of Public Instruction. And in all 3 phone calls, they have, or the 2, the third will be tomorrow, I imagine they'll be saying similar as what they said the other 2 times. The liability for any district or any employer for that matter is if you are failing to follow an order, you are going to be on the hook. You are going to be liable. Say, for instance, in the middle of April, we said, we know that there is an order for us to stay home. We're going back to school. You would be liable. You would not be covered by insurance in any way, shape, or form. Further, the burden of proof in regards to how COVID was transmitted would be difficult at best to prove at this time, and the lawyers have said that it is very likely a very difficult proposition to say it was contracted here. The only case that Mike Julka had seen thus far, and that meeting was held approximately a month ago, was the case of a registered nurse in a hospital setting where they were in litigation against the hospital that they worked in. But in regards to school systems, that's in no way would we be liable unless we're failing to follow an executive order, a state order, a mandate from a county, a mandate from a city, a mandate from our government. That's what we have been told twice and probably again tomorrow a third time.
And a lot has changed since in the past week. I know a lot of school districts in the county were under the old recommendation of masks being strongly required but not mandatory, and I guess that's not only changed for your recommendation, but and the leadership team's recommendation, but
Well, a
pretty
lot
much all
has
the other
occurred.
schools are getting on board with
There
mandatory
are.
masks.
A lot
too,
has
correct?
occurred over the course of the last week. There are 39 schools in CISA 11, and to understand a CISA, that means the schools that make up Northwest Wisconsin, 39 districts. And there are 9 schools in Polk County. As of last Monday, there was 1 school of 39, 1 school of 9, meaning Polk County, that had a mandate for kids to be wearing masks, and that was a mandate 5-12, grades 5 through 12. As of yesterday, actually as of this morning, of the 39, to my knowledge, there are 9, and there is a lot of conversation going on. My estimation is by the time we get to September 1st, you're probably going to be close to 39 out of 39. And here's why. There are really 3 things that are happening in a school environment. Well, there are more than 3 things, but 3 big things that are happening in a school environment for the dynamics of this. First, social distancing. And we had that conversation last time. It's a tough proposition to socially distance in a school environment. It is, in some cases, nearly impossible. The second is for us to create systems in our environment where we're sanitizing and disinfecting and doing everything we can in regards to mitigation efforts, and everything we can we've got on the list. So we're going to do those things. And then the third thing is the wearing of masks. And if we can do that, of the 3, that's the easiest of the 3 to keep our students and our staff safe. Now, there is a lot of research out there that's saying that kids don't transmit this illness. That's not true. Recently, as of today, the research says that students that are of the age of 11 or older spread the illness in the same exact fashion as an adult does. And if that's the case and they're not wearing masks, we're putting our students and we're putting our staff at risk. And I don't think any of us are interested in that. So a lot's happened in the last week.
Yeah, I just think that if we don't require students to wear masks, that you might have 50% of kids that choose to do that if it's only recommended. And I mean, you know, nobody likes them, obviously. The kids aren't going to like it, but if you require it, then they'll do it. If you recommend it, you know, I think they'll get used to it. I think that, you know, people will kind of like, well, it's annoying, but it's better to have a mask on and be back in school. And really that's what we want to see is kids back in school and hopefully staying back in school and not having a mandate or having to shut down or having to quarantine a whole class or a whole grade or whatever it is, the whole high school or something. So, you know, I would rather see the requirement that kids wear masks and allow us to be back in school in person and hopefully stay here. I do think we need to add a few words to the language that, you know, that there will be exceptions based on a student's IEP or medical condition, you know.
I consulted with an attorney today, and the 2 immediate caveats that you need to have to any policy are students that have a medical condition that's documented by a doctor, so a signed note stating they're unable to wear a mask for X, Y, or Z reason. And the other category is students that have an IEP, and they've documented there. Both of those are legal binding documents, and we're by all means going to follow every one of those recommendations. And I will offer one other thing, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Aaron. We're going back to school 5 days a week. So if we're going back to school 5 days a week and we can't really reasonably expect to socially distance really well, and we're not wearing masks, I think we're asking for trouble. And I also offer the following: Apple, Best Buy, Costco, Starbucks, CVS, Kohl's, Lowe's, Sam's Club, Walmart, Home Depot in 36 states are requiring masks. A lot of people are going that direction because the research is very clear. It will help stop the transmission of COVID-19, and that's what we're trying to do.
I think I want to say that I do echo Erin's sentiment of we want kids in our school, we want kids here 5 days a week. We know that we need them here for their best education. I would argue that when you talk about private businesses mandating masks and saying that it is because the research shows that slows the spread of the virus, I would argue that that may not be the entire reason that those places require masks. Now, they want customers to feel safe. And I also have a strong problem with using that we are going to put masks on our children and reopen schools safely. I think that would be safer, not safely, because that gives people a very false sense of security. And if we're saying that we're going to put masks on our kids and we're going to open the school safely, but yet we're not requiring 20 of the same kids to wear masks just because they're in a cohort, I think that sends a wrong message. And so I think we need to talk about being safer. This is one measure to be safer, along with other measures that can be taken, and those should be spelled out. It is our job as a board to write policy. The people that have come here and expressed that they would like to see masks in their classroom to reopen schools safely, I hear it, and I really want that. It is also our job to follow what the majority of the people want, but we also have to think about when we're writing policy, how is that policy going to look? How is it going to be enforced? Who's going to enforce it? And are we creating more problems by mandating something for kids 100% versus based on what if?
Can I respond quickly, because I'm going to lose train of thought because there's a lot of topics that you brought up there. The first response that I would give is I'll channel Lene Seaman. She said from the get-go when this whole thing began way in March is we're never going to create a safe environment in the Amery schools. A safer environment, there are some things that we can do, and we've listed some of those last time, and this time that would create a safer environment. In regards to staff, I have heard from quite a few staff, and I know that you might have heard from some. I've also heard from quite a few community members that are concerned about the safety and well-being of their kids. Are there logistics that we need to work out in regards to the wearing of masks and when and how and so forth? Yes, there absolutely is. The first action we need to take here is to make that a requirement. The second action, which I contend is a daunting task, is to work out the logistics surrounding that. But it looks so very different from building to building, from cohort to cohort. The group that I've heard from the loudest in teaching staff are specialists, those who travel from group to group or have multiple groups that come in to see them. There are teachers here that I heard from one this morning that'll see 500 kids over the course of a Monday through Friday. That's 1/3 of the district. That person's obviously at greater risk than someone that sees the same group of 20 second graders all day long. Certainly we have to create the logistics that shoulder their safety as well. Your point is very well taken, Shar, absolutely.
And I think we understand that not everybody is going to be happy. I mean, if we require masks, there are going to be people that are upset, and if we don't require masks, there are going to be people that are upset, and we understand that there are people that, are on both sides of this issue. We just feel like we have to make the best decision, and ultimately our staff don't have a choice other than quitting their job. They have to be here with the students, and even if a parent or family strongly opposes masks, they're not the ones that have to be here every day with the kids, especially those upper grades that are changing their kids, every hour or so and seeing so many different kids. So I feel like we need to do what we can to help protect and make it safer. Again, we don't know I mean, we just don't know what's all going to happen, and we don't want to see anyone have serious health consequences from getting this disease. But we also have to do our best to move on with life and try to get everyone back to school. So I feel like, as much as it's going to make some people upset, we do have that option of distance learning. If a family is refusing to participate with masks on, but I kind of feel like we need to honor the requests of our staff. And there are staff that also don't want to wear masks.
That is true.
Some of them.
That is true.
But I feel like they're more of the opinion that, I'll do what I have to do to get back to my classroom. So.
I'll use Cheryl Meyer's words. If wearing masks for everybody gets us back 5 days a week, I'm all in favor. And she doesn't want to do it any more than the rest of us do. And that is our ticket back to town, so to speak, to get us back in action. I don't see it any other way.
I don't think this decision can be based on where you're saying that there are people that's going to be upset whether we mandate them or there's people that's not going to be. That's a whole separate issue. None of this should be about politics or how somebody feels. This should really be about the safety of our kids, all of our kids, the mental well-being of our kids, the physical well-being of our kids, our staff. But we need to realize that when we make this decision, that we are 100% going to affect negatively a certain amount of kids.
That is true. Some of those kids will have documented need, and those kids will be easier to identify, and then some of those kids don't, and they'll have trouble with that. And we hope that we have high enough quality pupil services, and I believe we do. And I know we have high enough quality administrative team and supervisors that we can help kids work through those issues, because they'll exist. That, in combination with having been absent from us for the better part of 6 months, is going to have a damaging effect on them. I get that, absolutely. But we can help work through that with them. But to throw the whole thing out because we might have those issues, I would rather adopt it and help those kids work through those issues. And I know we have the staff here that'll help them do that. I agree with you, Shar. This decision needs to be made purely on medical science and safety, and this is the safest option we've got. And once we do that, we'll be safer than we were before. We won't be safe, that is for sure. There's a lot of moving parts on this.
I just want people to know and understand that if we vote to go ahead and approve masks in this plan, that we make every effort to accommodate those students who cannot wear them for a variety of reasons. I know we're going to have negative health impacts as well with kids not being able to wash masks. We have to figure out a plan how to dispose of masks if they're disposable. Do we need to think about switching masks out after a couple hours of the day? I think we could see increased cases of strep throat and bacterial infections from wearing these masks, and distress to parents of our younger kids if they're going to put their kids in reusable masks, that those masks need to be washed not only for their own child's well-being but for those of others. If those masks are being laid around, we just have to, if we're going to mandate that, I just urge our administrative team to come up with all of those details.
I agree, and I don't want to steal Brad Baumgartner's thunder. He shared with us this morning, administrative team, when we met about this topic, that we need to take this, just as we do most other things, as an opportunity to educate our kids. You can educate elementary school kids about the values of hygiene in the same way, and I know I speak confidently for Tom in saying some middle school kids could work on hygiene too, and that would be an opportunity to do that. And we can use this across the board as an educational tool, not as a punitive measure. We're all in this together, by all means. It has to be an educational tool. And the logistical questions that you raised, Shar, they're all very legitimate questions that we're going to have to work through the details on. And they certainly do look different from building to building. But it's not to say we can't work those details out with success. Because you know who's going to be our biggest help? I think our kids are going to be our biggest help. They're going to ask the questions that we don't have the answers to, and that's going to help guide what we need to come up with, because they're the ones living it. So they've always been our biggest resource, and they will continue to be through this. Not to insult the middle school population. Hopefully I haven't offended any middle schoolers.
And I'm guessing we'll hear more about that at the August board meeting, is all the details.
Yep, well, I will certainly bring them back to you. We're meeting next Wednesday and Thursday as an administrative team, and leading off the day is all of these details that we're talking about right here and now. And that'll probably take the better part of the morning to work through them. We're working through all sorts of other details too. How do you do recess? How do you do pickup? How do you do drop-off? How do you do after-school care? How do you do fill in the blank? There are lots of things that we've never done before we're having to create plans for. This is just the next set of things we've never done before.
So that kind of brings me to my next question, and I don't know that we really have addressed it in this plan. You know, we've said no volunteers, no parents, but then we also said we opened the campus up to other groups to use the facilities. And community ed, we just heard from, have we made a decision, or do we need to make some kind of a decision about outside groups using the school building after hours, you know, different groups using, you know, community ed groups or different?
Sure. What we have tried to do on this is chunk this situation into, here's the next group of concerns we have to address. Opening clubhouse, addressing the use of facilities after we get to July 1 until we get to sports. And then once we get to sports, what do we do with groups in September? Have we communicated our plan with them yet? We have not. But are we set to in August? We're obligated to, and we will. But to do all of this in totality and get it all organized before the rest of 2020, I don't know that anyone's capable of that, but yes, absolutely. And the next item on the list after this meeting is athletics. What's happening there? Jeff, our athletic director, Jeff Ferd's got a meeting with the Middle Border Conference athletic directors tomorrow. The Polk County superintendents and the athletic directors have a meeting next Tuesday to determine what athletics looks like. Because you have athletics firing up here in the better part of 2 weeks. Are you practicing? How are you practicing? If you're practicing, are you playing? How are you playing? Who are you playing? Where are you playing? All of those questions are going to need to be answered by this district. We are making district decision. That is what the WIAA has told us. All decisions in regards to how you practice and how you play are a district decision. So that's a pretty daunting reality, because what we decide and what our neighbors decide could be dramatically different. And that creates animosity about the topic. So we're trying to work through those details as a group, as a Polk County group and as a middle border group, because about 75%, if not more, of our competition is middle border competition, but that spans 3 counties, Pierce, St. Croix, and Polk. And that's 8 schools that do it perhaps 8 different ways. Polk County is going to be on the same page, but we don't play Unity and St. Croix Falls typically. We play Ellsworth and New Richmond, so it makes it hard. So that's the next set of information to come your way. But we still haven't figured it out, because the WIAA hasn't figured it out, and nor has the Middle Border figured it out. Another thing we've never done before.
Well, through media and readings and that, you know, the mask wearing does make a difference. I think that's a common ground we can all be on. I understand not encumbering on people's rights and needs, and so we need to develop that too. As we move forward, if we do decide to wear masks, I implore the parents and guardians in the community to help us make this successful, because without them saying we need to help our kids come to school face to face to continue learning, it's going to be a struggle. I mean, it's one of those things that we can set our policy this way, but we need the help of everybody to help make this policy work for everybody. And so the conversation has been great, and that's what we need. With that, I would make a motion to approve the resolution or the bounce back policy.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all in favor to approve the bounce back plan? say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right,
Do we need to make a separate motion for the resolution?
I think that's what Keith, I think you said resolution.
Resolution.
Okay.
the
I'm sure we're
resolution,
not done discussing that.
the resolution takes care of the bounce back.
It does. It
Pretty
gets
much a
us.
summary of the.
Yep, it gets
okay.
us back in action on September 1st. And hopefully that document doesn't get any longer. If we have 17 other scenarios, it will be on to page 3.
Okay. All right, next item on the, next action item are the extracurricular contracts.
As I just indicated, we have sports firing up here in a couple of weeks. Our fall sports extracurricular contracts are sent out to staff that are sent out to our coaches and advisors for those activities. The word from the WIAA as of Friday, this past Friday, was nothing has been delayed, nothing has been canceled. So we can't assume that it's going to get delayed and canceled and not send out those contracts. We're sending them out as if we're business as usual, we're playing ball games. Might that change? It might. And at that point, we might have to come back to the table and talk about how we do our extra C contracts with language. If we have an 8-week delay, for instance, are you paying them their full salaried amount for their extra C if they're only coaching 4 of the 12 weeks or whatever? But we don't know that right now. We only know we're full speed ahead and we're starting in a couple of weeks. So I would ask your approval for sending those contracts out to those coaches and advisors here this evening.
The extracurricular contracts are not just sports contracts though, correct?
No, advisors too.
Pardon me?
Advisors to in extended contracts, those types of things like FFA, those types of activities.
Yeah. I think there's a list of all the
Yes, there is.
the activities and, including a lot of non-sports activities that are on board book.
And again, I will say that we still have one available volleyball coach position open at the middle school for those who are, I know you feel at a conflict of interest, but we could work with you.
That conflict of interest,
I'm sure you would have opted in.
All right, is there a motion to approve the extracurricular?
Maybe just before the vote, I just want to make a comment that I will abstain from voting on the extracurricular contracts because I have a daughter on this list.
Yep.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the extracurricular contracts?
I'll move to approve the extracurricular contracts.
Is there a
I'll
second? Okay, second. Okay, all in favor, but Dale, say aye.
Aye.
All right, anyone opposed? All right, they're approved, thank you. The next item are the 2021 board meeting dates.
We need to make a change in our 2021 board meeting dates. We erroneously, or I erroneously, scheduled a board meeting on the Monday of March 15th, which is spring break. I'm not so sure that we're going anywhere, but if we are, we probably don't want a board meeting that night. So we moved it up a week to the 8th, and that was my oversight. I will use COVID-19 as my standard excuse on that one. A lot going on.
I'll make a motion that we change the March meeting date.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
I'm just, for the record, that's from the 15th to the 8th, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the board meeting dates are approved. The next action item is the bus purchase.
Okay, Mr. Tom Olson is here this evening. You'll see the 3 bids for a bus purchase, and Tom's going to talk to you about those and give you a recommendation. Tom has been anxiously awaiting this moment all day, I'm sure.
Just chewing at the bit.
Yep, you were very excited. So walk us through those 3 if you could, please. Do you need a copy of them?
Yeah, I don't have a copy.
Okay.
You want mine?
It's just the details regarding the 3 bids. I browsed through it earlier.
Okay.
So my recommendation is the Wisconsin Bluebird All-American.
And we received 2 other bids, and those 2 other bids were from,
Nelson Bus Service, the Thomas Bus, and Midstate, which is an international rear engine, they call it a pusher bus.
and the reason for your recommendation would be, why should we go with your recommendation?
Well, the last bus we purchased was a Bluebird, all-American, with air brakes, air ride, and that's been a good bus because I'm driving it. It's a really nice ride. Getting rid of the leaf springs in the back, it makes it a lot smoother and cheaper and repair and stuff.
Our ambition is to each and every year bring you a new bus purchase because we have to continue to refresh that fleet, or eventually we're going to be getting 6 buses at one time, and we don't want to do that. So Andy's shaking his head, no, we don't want to do that. So we want to continue to do that. So I would recommend that you go with Tom's recommendation for a new bus purchase.
And all of our buses are Bluebird, correct?
Except for one. We had one
except
Thomas
one.
bus. A
Okay.
couple years ago, we purchased a Thomas bus.
So that's another reason why it kind of makes sense to get a Bluebird.
does.
So you're on the same,
And it's all about the service and all that stuff,
Okay.
and we found out the Thomas bus, it's not very good people down there either. And Bluebird, they changed personnel down there, so they're a lot better now, since we went to the Thomas bus that one year.
I'll make a motion that we approve the bus purchase for the Bluebird bus.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the purchase for the Bluebird from Wisconsin Bus Sales is approved. Thank you, Tom.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right,
You
the
can stick around for more speaking if you'd like.
Can't get out of here fast enough. The next time you should move him up the,
Yeah, I was gonna
Yes,
say.
We're gonna
we
go over and sit
should.
there.
All right, the last action item is personnel.
Personnel.
I think
You'll see personnel listed there. I got to grab my personnel sheet here so I can speak with a little more knowledge. So all the way at the back. Okay, we have a retirement, and I'll speak about that in a moment. Stacia Kerper. Then we have new employee and athletic contracts for Catherine Bartell in general music and band. Nancy Edgett Tritt, lead cook at the intermediate. Mackenzie Gamache, 8th grade volleyball. Leslie Jacobson, 8th grade English. Drew Johnson, 8th grade volleyball. And Peggy Lundgren for custodian at the intermediate school. And after you take action however you see fit, then I'm going to speak to you about Stacia.
Move to approve the personnel action.
And I'll just make a comment again, I will abstain from voting on that, the personnel action.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, personnel action is approved. Thank you.
Stacia Kerper, she is retiring. She met with me last week, Thursday, and I think if I would have talked long enough, she would be coming back. She was hemming and hawing, am I doing the right thing? Should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? And all I said was, you should be getting congratulated left and right for the work that you've done around here. Sail off into the sunset with happiness. 39 years in education, a couple years in Forest Lake, a couple years in Clayton, and then 32 years here. I asked her a couple of questions. What are you looking forward to? And she said she loves to quilt. She has grandkids that she's going to be spending some time with. And she was super excited for that. And I asked her, what are you going to miss? And this is, of all the people that I've ever asked that question of, this is for me, the most gratifying answer I've ever heard. But I think it's probably true of nearly all of our retirees. She said, all of the kids for all of the years that I taught who said to me, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, the aha moment when they did it and how exciting that was. And then she said the best thing, that's why I came to work every single day, because that just fired me up. And if you know Stacia, she does not lack energy. We talked about her at graduation here the other evening. Her email stated in her retirement, and I stated this at graduation, Dr. Seuss once said, don't be sad because it's over, be glad because it happened. And that is Stacia in a nutshell right there. So congratulations to Stacia Kerper on her retirement.
Thanks, Mrs. Kerper, for all your years. You've touched a lot of kids, and I think anybody that's been involved in education, and sometimes you can teach for 10 years and get bogged down in all of the day-to-day stuff and forget that that's really the reason that you went into education in the first place, is to watch that light go on in those kids when they get it. Thank you.
Yes. Stacia was the first teacher that I came to volunteer when my kids came, and she welcomed me, and I looked at the room and saw chaos, but such organization and energy, and the kids just loved her to pieces. All three of mine did.
When I mentioned her name at graduation, I was looking out at the graduates. You probably saw it too. There were faces that lit up because they remember Mrs. Kerper, kindergarten, Dr. Seuss, because they lived it 12, 13 years ago.
Yep.
It was awesome to see.
Yep. Such an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
A career well done.
Yes.
We will greatly miss you, though.
All right, there's no reason to go back into closed session, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Roll call, Aaron?
Yes.
Shar?
Yep.
Dale?
Yes.
Keith? Yep. Yes, we're adjourned.